In 1962, a Sears cafeteria in Chicago sold more slices of pie on a single Saturday than the store sold washing machines all month. Families planned the whole trip around it. Buy the school shoes, ride the escalator up, and save room for dessert. Today, those cafeterias are gone, and the desserts vanished with them. Number 4 was the one every family split 3 ways with 3 spoons. Number 3, they lit on fire right at your table. Hit that subscribe button and let us count down the 25 forgotten Sears cafeteria desserts shoppers always saved room for. Number 25, tapioca pudding. Before pudding came in a plastic cup with a peel-off lid, it came in a heavy glass dish that the woman behind the cafeteria line handed you from a bed of crushed ice. Sears tapioca was the real thing, cooked slow so the little pearls swelled up soft and translucent, suspended in a vanilla custard that was still faintly warm in the center. You would slide your tray down the chrome rail, point at it, and she would set it on your tray without a word. A dish cost about 15 cents in the late 1950s. It tasted like something a grandmother made, not something a factory poured. The texture was the whole point, those tender beads giving just a little resistance before dissolving. Children who would not touch pudding at home ate it here because it came with the ceremony of the tray line. Modern instant tapioca cannot touch it. It sets up gluey and flat. The slow-cooked version is nearly extinct. Number 24, rice pudding. Right beside the tapioca sat the rice pudding, and regulars had strong opinions about which was better. Sears made theirs the old way, rice simmered in milk and sugar until the grains went plump and the whole thing thickened into something you could stand a spoon in. A dusting of cinnamon went across the top, and if you were lucky, a scatter of plump raisins had sunk into the custard. It came cold from the case, which somehow made it better on a hot afternoon of shopping. A serving ran about 15 cents and filled you up like a small meal. Men on their lunch break ate it standing at the counter. The skin that formed on top, that thin cinnamon-freckled film, was either the best part or the worst part, depending on who you asked. Nobody argues about rice pudding anymore because almost nobody serves it. It quietly disappeared when dessert became something frozen. Number 23, butterscotch parfait. This was the dessert you ordered when you wanted to feel a little fancy. It came in a tall-footed glass, the kind that made a 15-cent pudding feel like something you would get in a hotel dining room. Layers of butterscotch pudding alternated with whipped cream, and a single maraschino cherry sat on top like a crown. The butterscotch was deep and buttery, made with real brown sugar cooked down until it went almost smoky. You had to dig your long spoon all the way to the bottom to get every layer in one bite, and that was half the fun. Sears served these to kids as a reward for good behavior through a long afternoon of trying on coats. A parfait cost around 20 cents. The tall glass alone made it an event. When soft-serve machines arrived and everything got faster and cheaper, the layered parfait in real glass became too much trouble. It vanished. Number 22, fruit cocktail with whipped cream. This one cost almost nothing, and that was the beauty of it. A scoop of canned fruit cocktail, the kind with the diced pears and grapes, and exactly 1 or 2 cubes of pink cherry per dish, spooned into a coupe and crowned with a swirl of real whipped cream. It sounds humble because it was. A dish cost a dime, maybe 12 cents. But on the cafeteria line under those warm lights, it looked jewel bright and cool and refreshing. The syrup from the can mixed with the cream into something sweet and light that finished a heavy lunch without weighing you down. Older shoppers watching their figures or their dentures chose this over the pie. It was the sensible dessert, the one you did not feel guilty about. Today, fruit cocktail has become a punchline, a symbol of dated cooking. But served cold in a proper glass dish, it was exactly what a lot of tired feet needed. Number 21. Ribbon Jello Salad. Here is where mid-century America showed off. Ribbon Jello was layer upon layer of different colored gelatin, red, then a creamy white, then green, each poured and set before the next went on, so the colors stayed sharp and never bled. The white layers were made with evaporated milk or sour cream, which turned them opaque and rich against the jewel-clear fruit layers. It took a full day to build because every stripe had to chill firm before the next one could go on top. Sears cut it into neat squares and set each one on a lettuce leaf, wobbling under the lights so it caught the eye from clear across the room. A square cost about 15 cents. Children begged for it purely because it looked like a toy. The layering was a genuine skill, a small act of patience that nobody has the time for anymore. You will not find ribbon Jello on a menu today. It went out with the aprons. Number 20, ambrosia. In the South especially, no cafeteria dessert case was complete without a big bowl of ambrosia glistening under the glass. Mandarin oranges, crushed pineapple, shredded coconut, and tiny marshmallows all folded together and bound with a little whipped cream or sour cream until it turned into something snowy and sweet. The name meant food of the gods, and to a child who had been dragged through the appliance department for 2 hours, that felt about right. Sears scooped it into small dishes for around 15 cents. It was cold and creamy and had that chewy coconut texture running all the way through. Some versions added chopped pecans or a handful of red cherries for color. It sat somewhere between a salad and a dessert, which is exactly why the older generation loved it. They could tell themselves it was practically fruit. Ambrosia survives at a few family reunions. In a cafeteria case, it is gone. Number 19, bread pudding. Nothing on the Sears menu made better use of leftovers, and that was the whole spirit of it. Day-old dinner rolls and bread heels, cut into cubes, soaked in a custard of eggs, milk, sugar, and vanilla, then baked until the top went golden and crackly while the inside stayed soft as pudding. A warm square came to you with a ladle of vanilla sauce or a thin caramel poured over the top, pooling around the base of the dish. It cost about 20 cents and it ate like a hug. On a cold day, steam rose off it. Raisins studded the inside, plumped up soft from their time in the custard. This was frugal cooking turned into comfort, the kind of dessert that made a department store lunch feel like Sunday at home. Bread pudding lived on cafeteria lines because cafeterias hated waste. When waste stopped mattering, so did bread pudding. First, pattern break. Here is what people forget about these desserts. It was never really about the food. It was about the room. The Sears cafeteria was a genuine destination, a place with cloth-covered tables or gleaming formica, big windows, and the smell of coffee and pie crust hanging in the air. You did not just grab a snack. You slid a brown tray down a long chrome rail, past the woman in the paper cap who plated your dessert to order, and you carried it to a table where your whole family sat down together in the middle of a shopping trip. That was the magic. In an era before food courts, before drive-thrus on every corner, the department store cafeteria was where a working family could sit down and be served something nice for pocket change. The dessert was the reward at the end of a long, practical day. That is why people saved room. Not for the sugar, for the sitting down. Number 18, lemon meringue pie. This was the pie people drove across town for. The Sears version was tall and proud, a bright yellow lemon curd filling that was tart enough to make your cheeks pull, poured into a flaky crust, and crowned with a cloud of meringue swirled up into peaks and browned just at the tips. That meringue was the trick. Made right, it never wept and never went flat, holding its shape in tall, glossy waves under the display glass. A slice cost about 25 cents. The contrast was everything. The sharp, cold lemon against the sweet, marshmallow, soft meringue against the buttery crust. You got all three in one forkful. Old-timers will tell you a lemon meringue pie is the truest test of a cafeteria kitchen because a lazy one falls apart. Sears took the time. Then frozen pies arrived and the fresh meringue, which took real skill and could not sit for days, quietly disappeared from the case. Number 17, coconut cream pie. If the lemon meringue was the tart one, the coconut cream was the pie that comforted you. A deep custard base loaded with shredded coconut, set firm in a crust, topped with whipped cream, and then showered with toasted coconut that had been browned in the oven until it smelled like a bakery. That toasted coconut on top was the signature, adding a nutty crunch against the silky custard underneath. A slice ran about 25 cents. The whole thing was pale and generous and about 2 inches tall, the kind of slice you had to plan the rest of your lunch around. Coconut cream pie was a favorite of the ladies who lunched, the regulars who came in every Thursday after doing their layaway payment. It felt rich without being heavy. The homemade custard cooked on a stove and stirred by hand is what modern grocery store versions lost. They gel it in a factory now. It is not the same. Number 16, chocolate cream pie. For the children, this was the only pie that mattered. A crust filled with dark, dense chocolate custard, cooked until it was thick enough to hold a clean edge when sliced, then piled high with real whipped cream and sometimes a scatter of chocolate curls or shavings on top. The filling was not the waxy pudding you might expect. It was deep and almost bitter under the sweetness, made with real cocoa cooked into a custard that set up glossy and smooth. A slice cost around 25 cents. When you cut into it, the filling held its shape and then melted on your tongue. Sears kept these front and center in the display case because they sold themselves. One look through the glass, and a kid was tugging his mother's sleeve. The trick was in the cooking, a chocolate custard that could go wrong a dozen ways if you rushed it. Cafeteria cooks knew how. That knowledge left with them. Number 15, Boston cream pie. Despite the name, this was never a pie at all, and half the fun was watching a first-timer figure that out. It was a cake, 2 layers of golden sponge with a thick band of vanilla custard sandwiched between them, and the whole top glazed with a mirror of dark chocolate that dripped just slightly down the sides. Sears served it in generous wedges for about 30 cents. Each bite gave you all three at once: the tender cake, the cool custard, the snap of chocolate. It was a little more elegant than the everyday puddings, the kind of dessert a husband ordered to feel like he was treating his wife to something on a Saturday out. The custard center is what a factory version can never replicate, that soft pastry cream made fresh in the kitchen. Boston cream survives in grocery store cakes, but the real cafeteria version, cool, custard and all, has been forgotten. Number 14, pineapple upside-down cake. This was the showpiece, the cake that came to the table looking like it had been assembled by an artist. Rings of canned pineapple pressed into a caramel of butter and brown sugar in the bottom of the pan, a maraschino cherry set in the center of every ring, then batter poured over the top and baked. When it came out and got flipped, all that caramel and fruit ended up gleaming on top, golden and sticky and glazed. A square cost about 25 cents at the cafeteria line. The bottom of the cake, now the top, was soaked through with buttery pineapple syrup, so it was almost custardy where it met the fruit. Those bright red cherries made it look like a celebration on a plate. It was the dessert that said somebody put effort into your afternoon. Home bakers still attempt it, but you almost never see it served to the public anymore. It was too pretty and too much work to last. Number 13, angel food cake with strawberries. Light as air and white as a cloud, angel food cake was the dessert for people who found everything else too rich. Made from nothing but whipped egg whites, sugar, and flour, it baked up into a tall, spongy ring so airy it seemed to weigh nothing at all. Sears served a thick slice with sweetened strawberries spooned over the top and their juice soaking down into the sponge, plus a dollop of whipped cream on the side. A serving cost around 20 cents. Tearing it apart with your fork, you could see how fine and even the crumb was, a sign that someone had beaten those egg whites by hand or watched the mixer like a hawk. It was the guilt-free choice, the dessert grandmothers ordered without a second thought. In strawberry season, it was the best thing in the case. Angel food from a boxed mix exists, but the fresh cafeteria version, served with real berries, is nearly gone. Second pattern break. Here is something worth thinking about. These desserts did not disappear because people stopped liking them. They disappeared because of arithmetic. A slice of fresh lemon meringue pie took a skilled cook an hour to build and could only sit in the case for a day before the meringue wept. A frozen pie shipped in on a truck, sat for a week, and cost the store almost nothing in labor. When Sears and every other department store did the math, in the 70s and 80s, the cook lost. The kitchens that once made custard from scratch got smaller, then got replaced by a freezer and a microwave, then got closed entirely. And do not forget the candy counter near the door, where the smell of warm cashews and caramel corn hit you the second you walked in. That went too. We did not decide these desserts were bad. We decided the people who made them were too expensive. That is the whole story of how they vanished. Number 12, Devil's Food Layer Cake. When somebody at the table wanted chocolate and meant it, this was the answer. A towering slice of dark, moist devil's food, 3 layers deep, held together and slathered all over with a thick fudge frosting that had a slight shine to it. The cake itself was almost red-brown from the cocoa, dense and damp, the kind that left a little smear on your fork. Sears cut the slices tall and generous for about 30 cents. This was not a delicate dessert. It was a commitment, the sort of slice you shared or regretted. The frosting was the star, a real cooked fudge icing that set up just firm enough on the outside while staying soft underneath. Kids negotiated over who got the corner piece with the most frosting. It was the birthday cake you did not have to have a birthday for. Boxed cake and canned frosting killed it slowly. The from-scratch cafeteria version, dense and fudgy, is a memory now. Number 11, Cherry Cobbler. Nothing filled the cafeteria with a better smell than cherry cobbler coming out of the oven. Tart canned cherries bubbling away under a golden biscuit topping. The juice thickened and turned glossy and deep red, spooned warm into a bowl, and finished with a scoop of vanilla ice cream melting fast into the hot fruit. That contrast of warm and cold was the entire appeal, and it cost about 25 cents. The cherries were sour enough to balance all the sugar, so it never got cloying, and the biscuit top soaked up the juice along its underside while staying crisp on top. This was a cold-weather dessert, the one you wanted after coming in out of the November wind with a cart full of Christmas layaway. Cobbler was cheap to make, and it fed a crowd, which is exactly why cafeterias loved it. It has mostly retreated to home kitchens and church potlucks. On a public menu, it is rare. Number 10, Deep Dish Apple Pie a la Mode. This was the American classic, and Sears did it right. A deep crust packed with cinnamon-spiced apple slices, baked until the top was golden and the fruit had gone soft and syrupy inside, served warm with a scoop of vanilla ice cream sliding off the top and pooling into the crust. A slice cost about 30 cents with the ice cream. The smell alone, cinnamon and butter and baked apple, pulled people toward the case. What made the cafeteria version special was that they warmed the slice before serving, so the cold ice cream hit the hot pie and began to melt the second it landed. You had to eat it a little fast. The crust was made in-house, flaky, and substantial enough to hold all that fruit. Apple pie itself has not disappeared, but the ritual of a warmed slice with melting ice cream served to you by someone in a paper cap absolutely has. Number 9. Strawberry shortcake. In the late spring, this was the dessert people waited all year for. Not the spongy store-bought cups, but a real biscuit, slightly sweet and split in half, piled with strawberries that had been sliced and sugared hours earlier so they gave up their juice and turned syrupy, then buried under a mound of fresh whipped cream. The juice soaked down into the biscuit and softened it into something halfway between cake and pudding. Sears served it in season for about 25 cents, and regulars knew to ask when the strawberries came in. The tender biscuit was the key, buttery and rich, a world away from the dry yellow sponge shells you buy today. It ate like summer on a plate. Whipped cream ran down the sides. You needed a fork and a little patience. When frozen and pre-made took over, the fresh biscuit shortcake, assembled to order, quietly slipped off the menu and out of memory. Number 8. Cream puffs and eclairs. Down at the end of the dessert case sat the pastries, and these were the ones that looked like they came from a real French bakery. Cream puffs were rounds of hollow pâté, a choux split, and stuffed with cold vanilla custard or whipped cream, then dusted with powdered sugar. Eclairs were the long version, filled the same way and glazed across the top with chocolate. Both cost around 20 cents. Biting into one, you got that delicate shell giving way to a flood of cold cream. And if it was a good day, that custard was made fresh in the back. Sears kept them chilled and gleaming under the glass, and they moved fast because they looked expensive and cost almost nothing. The pastry itself, that choux dough, is genuinely tricky to make and easy to ruin, which is exactly why it disappeared. Nobody wanted to pay a pastry cook to make them anymore. The freezer aisle version is a shadow. Third pattern break. Here is the part that hits people the hardest. For a lot of families, the Sears cafeteria dessert was the whole outing. Money was tight in a way that is hard to explain now. You did not go out to eat. You did not have dessert every night at home. But once a month, maybe after the practical shopping was done, your mother would say the words that made the entire day worth it. "We can get something at the cafeteria." And you would sit down and she would let you pick, and for 15 or 20 cents you got a moment that felt like abundance. Grandparents took grandchildren. Fathers took daughters on Saturdays. It was where you sat across from someone and had a small, sweet, unhurried thing together in the middle of an ordinary week. When the cafeterias closed, we did not just lose the recipes. We lost the one affordable place where a working family could sit down and be treated like it mattered. Number 7. Peach Melba. This was the dessert that made you feel worldly, invented for an opera singer and somehow ending up on a department store menu in the American heartland. A poached peach half, or in the everyday version, a canned one, set in a coupe over a scoop of vanilla ice cream, then draped in a bright red raspberry sauce that ran down over everything. Sometimes a scatter of sliced almonds finished it. It cost about 25 cents. The combination was genuinely elegant. The cool, sweet peach, the cold ice cream, the tart raspberry cutting through it all. It looked like something from a restaurant far nicer than a store cafeteria, which is exactly why people ordered it, a little taste of luxury on a budget. The raspberry sauce, made from real berries cooked down and strained, is what modern versions skip. Peach Melba has almost entirely vanished from American menus, remembered now only by people who ate it under those cafeteria lights. Number 6. Root Beer Float. Simple, loud, and beloved by every kid who ever set foot in the place. A tall frosted glass, a couple of scoops of vanilla ice cream, and root beer poured over the top so it foamed up into a mountain of sweet brown fizz that threatened to spill over the rim. Sears served them for about 20 cents, with a long spoon and a paper straw. The magic was in the chemistry, the cold ice cream hitting the carbonation and turning the whole thing into a slushy, foamy, half-melted treat that was part drink and part dessert. You raced the foam before it collapsed. The ice cream slowly melted into the root beer until the last few sips were the best, creamy and sweet and cold. It was the sound of a childhood shopping trip, that fizzing glass on a Formica table. Fast food chains sold floats for a while, then quietly dropped them. The tall glass cafeteria float is gone. Number 5. Cheesecake. Long before every chain restaurant offered a dozen flavors, the plain New York cheesecake was a genuine treat, and the Sears version was dense and rich and tall. A thick, creamy slice on a graham cracker crust, sometimes served plain, sometimes with a spoonful of cherry or strawberry topping glistening on top. A slice cost about 30 cents. This was the grown-up dessert, the one that was almost too rich to finish, that you ordered when you wanted to sit a while with your coffee. The texture was the whole thing, smooth and heavy and slightly tangy, a real baked cheesecake and not the airy no-bake kind. The cherry topping, when it came, added a bright, sweet tart contrast that cut the richness. Made properly, a baked cheesecake takes care and slow oven time, which is why the cafeteria kitchens that still made their own were quietly proud of it. Then it became a factory product shipped frozen, and the from-scratch version faded. Number 4. Banana Split. Here it is, number 4, the one every family split 3 ways with 3 spoons. A long boat-shaped dish, a banana sliced down the middle, 3 scoops of ice cream nestled between the halves, and then the works: chocolate syrup, strawberry, pineapple, a blanket of whipped cream, a scatter of chopped nuts, and a maraschino cherry on each scoop. Sears served this monster for around 40 cents, which made it the splurge, the birthday level order, the thing too big for one person. That was the point. You shared it. Everybody reached in with their own spoon, staking out their favorite scoop, arguing over who got the cherry. It was less a dessert than an event, a centerpiece that arrived at the table and made the whole family lean in. The soda fountain banana split, built to order with real syrups, was pure theater. When the fountains closed, it became a rare thing, remembered fondly by everyone who ever shared one. Number 3. Baked Alaska. Number 3 is the one they lit on fire right at your table, and yes, in a department store. Baked Alaska was the showstopper, a base of cake and ice cream sealed completely inside a shell of meringue, then browned, fast in a hot oven, so the outside toasted golden, while the ice cream inside stayed frozen solid. In the fancier Sears dining rooms, they finished it with a flourish. A splash of warmed liquor set alight, so it arrived at the table flickering with blue flame. A serving cost around 40 cents, and it was worth every penny for the spectacle alone. The genius of it was the meringue, which insulated the ice cream so well it never melted in the oven. A little trick of physics that felt like magic to anyone watching. Heads turned across the whole room when one came out. It was too dramatic and too delicate to survive the age of the freezer case. Baked Alaska is all but extinct. Number 2, hot fudge cake. This was pure decadence, the dessert you ordered when the day had been long and you had earned it. A warm square of chocolate cake, a scoop of vanilla ice cream on top, and then a river of hot fudge poured over the whole thing, so it ran down the sides and pooled on the plate, the heat of the fudge slowly melting the ice cream into the warm cake. Whipped cream and a cherry finished it, and it cost about 35 cents. The contrast was everything. Warm cake, cold ice cream, hot fudge, all at once in a single spoonful. Sears served it in a shallow dish so you could get sauce with every bite. It was heavy and gooey and unapologetic. The dessert people remember most vividly because it was the one they treated themselves to. When cafeterias switched to pre-portioned and frozen, the made-to-order hot fudge cake with real hot fudge ladled over the top disappeared. Number 1, the hot fudge sundae. At the top of the list is the one that anchored every Sears fountain in the country, the dessert that shoppers of every age saved room for. 2 scoops of vanilla ice cream in a tulip glass, a ladle of thick hot fudge poured over so it seized against the cold and turned chewy at the edges, a swirl of whipped cream, a scatter of chopped nuts, and a single maraschino cherry on top. It cost about a quarter. That is all. But that quarter bought a moment that generations of Americans still remember, sitting at the counter or the table after a long afternoon, watching the fudge harden into a shell against the ice cream, dragging the last of it around the glass so nothing went to waste. It was simple, it was perfect, and it was everywhere, which is exactly why we stopped noticing it until it was gone. The real hot fudge, cooked and kept warm, is what made it. The soda fountain that served it is a memory now. But for anyone who was there, one taste would bring the whole store back. Here is my challenge. If you remember sliding a tray down that chrome rail, tell me in the comments which dessert you ordered. The hot fudge sundae, the banana split, the lemon meringue pie. Tell me who took you, because these were never just desserts. They were the reward at the end of an ordinary day, and a place where a family could sit down together for the price of pocket change. Somebody made these by hand once, and they were worth remembering.